Raise your hand if you have ever been personally victimized by the forced cursive handwriting courses primary schools often forced onto kids. I come from a long time ago, of around 1998 when my forced training began. We were stuck in lessons entirely about how to hold your pen correctly, doing repeated letters on the chalkboards. By the way, they never told us that was super bad for our lungs, and I'm pretty sure it won't come up in the future or anything, but yeah, be aware of that. Anyway, the 90s was the peak time of educating children in modern environments with old technology. I do think 2000 kids are more severely affected by that change, but it did occur a little bit earlier too. I remember using a mix of overhead projectors, individual chalkboards, Xerox copiers, clear acetate sheets, all these old and new technologies to teach what I eventually discovered to be a rudimentary form of copperplate script. And did anyone else realize this? Like, anyone else who was forced to do this? We were essentially given the least amount of information on what we were learning and even why we were learning this particular type of script. Also, like, if you had told us kids back in the classes, oh yeah, we're learning fancy-ass handwriting so you can write fancy swells, then we would have gone nuts for it. I don't understand why they didn't concentrate on that part of it. But no, we had to sit there in the silly little books and we learnt Queensland Standard handwriting. You can still buy the same bloody books from Officeworks. And these bloody books, they terrified me. I hated them so fucking much. You know, you could lose them, you could misplace them, and then you get in trouble, and then you wouldn't pass the writing, whatever. You know, there's all these weird tests, all this bullshit around it. I remember one teacher failing me out and calling my parents because I refused to colour in the top illustration of the work page. Like, I wasn't even trying to colour in, I was trying to write. The writing was technically fine. Anyway, I managed to get it reasonably neater and have fun with it once all the horrific trauma of the primary school system had passed. I was a proud holder of a pen license, which I was convinced by another teacher you needed to show in high school, like a bouncer checking the door for illicit pens. As an adult, I came across more and more of these calligraphy books, and I started to pick up the more interesting ones. And that is when I discovered the script type I had learnt and was using every single goddamn day was actually a copperplate style, which is usually taught with additional resources like proper pens, proper paper, and an explanation as to why, an allowance for artistic liberty in the script. I was pissed. They made me feel like this was the only way to write, and you'd fail at any career if you didn't do it correctly. I remember crying from stress trying to get all this weird shit right because in the time period when so much was changing, teachers and such had no idea what to concentrate on when teaching kids. We were still using the equivalent of slate tablets to learn how to write, while using those colourful bubble macs to learn how to type web addresses. So I began to express myself more with writing and script, and actually enjoying it. But I began to note the looming dread of yummy mummy Pinterest script styles popping up. At first it was just Christmas cards and other tat. And then it extended to live, love, laugh, or live, laugh, love, live, love, whatever, that kind of art, but it was still in its lane culturally. I was dubious about it being used on packaging, but at least it was just some candles and just some hair products, right? But on one fateful day in 2017, I saw an awful script sign advertising a place for lease. It was so bad, the letters were so disjointed, yet forced script together that it was close to incomprehensible. It was the type of lettering one would expect from a dude doing stick and poke tattoos on his mum's veranda for a six-pack and a gobby. This wasn't an expression of self through script, although I'll never claim that the majority of writing in script is. But it sure as hell missed the mark. Because isn't advertising meant to be at least legible? You couldn't tell the difference between the U and the A. That's how bad it was. I didn't realize that avant-garde typography was being utilized by low-grade commercial real estate lessers. I hate that modern script type so much. I actually straight up cannot even do it as bad as I want to try and try it because my muscle memory says no, none of that. Add some watercolor splashes behind that script and mwah, peak Pinterest mummy small business sticker for their MLM business. This is not to make fun of folks with small businesses that are not MLMs. You do you, keep up the hard work. Anyway, I was forced to write copperplate, and now I hate seeing anyone who doesn't realize that those little join curves aren't there for being pretty, they are there for legibility. Calligraphy and lettering as art has so much rich history across cultures, and it always gets drowned out by this fucking bullshit illegible script that basically is a red flag that screams, please revoke my pen license.